If the soul of a deceased loved one is still trying to reach you, would you dare to answer? Or a different question, even more unsettling, if modern science has actually recorded a signal from the other side, why have you never heard about it? Today, you'll hear a true story told in the words of the scientist himself, Dean Radin, a man who has spent decades studying the supernatural through data, through devices, and through the skeptical mind of a scientist. You will learn. A young woman lost her father. A consciousness wave detector stood in an empty room, and a strange signal that only appeared when she whispered, "Dad, I'm still waiting for you in room 3. This video isn't just a story. It will take you through real-world research on the field of consciousness, experiments no one dares to publish, and scientific evidence suggesting that pure emotion might call the soul back. The middle of this video is the most important. It's where doubt dissolves and intuition begins to speak. You're watching Heaven's Thread, where spiritual stories are told from the heart, with respect for science, and in the whisper of the soul. If something touches you by the end of this video, comment the letter Q. If you'd like me to deepen the content further, type the letter E. I listen to everything. Let's begin. Room 3 lies at the end of the hallway, in the basement research wing of the Institute of Noetic Sciences where Dean Radin works. A completely soundproofed space. No cameras. No natural light. Only one special device activated to detect the residual consciousness field. A type of frequency he believes may reflect what remains after a person leaves the physical body. The woman sitting in the adjacent room is Emily, 29 years old. Her father, a poet, had passed away just 2 months earlier. But ever since the funeral, she's been dreaming of him nightly. The same phrase, repeating unchanged. "Come to room 3, I'll leave something for you." At first, she thought it was just her subconscious playing tricks. But after the 13th dream, she started to believe it wasn't a coincidence. Dean made no promises. He simply said, "We'll let you sit in the room next door. Focus all your emotions, memories, and love on your father. No need to pray. No need to call his name. Just feel." The door closed. Emily shut her eyes. Total silence. Room 3 remained dark and empty. The device stayed still. 10 minutes passed, nothing. Then, in the 11th minute, Emily whispered one sentence. "I'm still waiting for you in room 3. The signal flared. The device reacted. A strange wave spiked on a screen that had been flat as a lake. No one touched the machine. No phone. No external signal. Only a faint tremor, like a breath from somewhere without a body. Dean said nothing. He just recorded the time, and his fingers began to tremble. This might be what he had waited his whole life to witness. Dean Radin is not a mystic. He holds a Ph.D. in physics. He once worked for Bell Labs, Princeton University, and conducted research for U.S. government projects. But one question never left him. Why are there things humans can still feel, even when science has yet to measure them? Once, during an experiment on instant intuition, he had volunteers sit in front of a screen. The machine would flash unexpected images, some peaceful, some shocking like scenes of war, accidents, or silhouettes of the recently deceased. The results left the entire lab silent. The volunteers' heart rate, skin conductivity, and brainwave activity all reacted seconds before the images appeared, as if their bodies had already known. From that point on, Dean began quietly collecting data on the unexplainable. The gut feeling when a loved one is in danger, prophetic dreams about death, near-death experiences with eerily similar details, and most notably, the presence of the deceased in moments that seem irrational. He never claimed that souls exist, but he began building a theory. If consciousness does not reside in the brain, it might survive even when the body shuts down. Dean called it the extended consciousness field, like radio waves not trapped inside a speaker, but always around us, just waiting for the right frequency to become sound. But one question haunted him. How can you measure a soul if it doesn't have a body? Then he received an email from Emily and a dream about room 3. Emily's email wasn't like the others. She wasn't asking for advice. She wasn't telling a sad story. She didn't write at length. Just a short note, almost a whisper through written words. I've dreamt of my father more than 10 times. Every time, he stands in an empty room and says only one sentence. Find me in room 3. Oh. At first, Dean wanted to dismiss it. He had received hundreds of similar stories. Most were trauma-induced hallucinations or unresolved grief. But something about the way she wrote kept him up that night. Not because of her dream, but because he, too, had once seen room 3 a year earlier. During a deep meditation at the Institute, Dean had a sudden image. A white door, no number, no lock. But behind it was a warm darkness not frightening. And inside, something was waiting for him. The next morning, he pulled out the floor plan of the Noetic Institute's basement. No one had noticed before. An unused lab room, now long abandoned, was labeled Room 3. A chill ran down his spine. He called Emily and made a decision. If a soul truly leaves behind a message, this could be the first chance to hear it. Through a device, not emotion. Through data, not belief. The experiment was scheduled. No funding, no announcement. Just Dean, Emily, and a sealed room, where silence waited to be named. Dean called the device Random Event Generator. It seemed simple. A machine that creates random number sequences through algorithms. But to him, this was the seismograph of the invisible world. By theory, if nothing interferes, the numbers should remain purely random. But in some previous experiments, Dean had witnessed something strange. When strong emotions were present nearby, the sequence began to drift from randomness. Not much, only a few parts per million, but enough to make a scientist question everything he once believed. Experiment night. Room 3 was cleared out. Only a wooden table remained. One empty chair and the reg device, placed on the table and linked to a server in the next room. Emily sat in the observation room. No cameras, no phones. She was only instructed, think of your father as if he were truly there. No need to speak. No need to pray. Just feel. Dean expected nothing. Success wouldn't be defined by voices or ghostly visions, only by a tiny disruption in the numerical flow. Time started. The device ran. The sequence appeared on screen, steady, like a robotic heartbeat. 5 minutes, nothing. 10 minutes, still a cold. Flatline. Dean began taking notes. Perhaps this was just another failed experiment among hundreds. He was about to shut it down when the numbers trembled. a slight deviation off pattern. And then, again and again, Dean glanced at Emily. She had her eyes closed, arms wrapped around her chest, lips barely moving. No one could hear it clearly. But in that moment, she whispered, "Dad, if you can hear me, give me a sign." The device clicked. A small red light blinked, something that had never happened before. Dean froze. A data stream appeared, a near-clear deviation, as if something had touched the system from outside this world. No one entered the room. No electromagnetic waves. Just an empty chair and a profound silence. Dean was not someone who believed easily. Even as he witnessed the machine react, he still maintained a distance between hope and delusion. He extracted the entire dataset from the REG device, replayed every minute, compared it to more than 300 previous experiments. Never once had a data anomaly occurred in perfect sync with an emotionally charged sentence like that day. Dean was stunned. He laid out 3 possible explanations. First, software malfunction. Second, sudden electromagnetic interference. Third, pure coincidence. Random noise. He checked each one. Software. Flawless. No error detected. Electromagnetism. No electronics nearby. Random coincidence. Statistically, the odds were 1 in 17 million. And at that moment, he remembered the question that had kept him up many nights. If a soul still exists and carries memory, emotion, and will, could it possibly exert physical influence on this world? Dean had once believed no, but now he wasn't so sure. Emily left the institute in silence that day. She didn't ask for results, didn't demand the data. She simply said one sentence as she walked out the door. "I know. My father is still there." Dean remained in the control room, the door to room 3 still slightly ajar. Nothing moved. Yet he felt as if someone were still sitting in that chair. No need to appear, just to know that their presence had been heard. Dean had always believed emotions can deceive us. Memory can distort, but data cannot. He spent weeks after that session analyzing everything. Not just that day's data, but all similar experiments he had conducted over the past 10 years. Over 1,000 sessions. Among them, several dozen had also shown unusual fluctuations. Dean had once thought they were just technical noise. But when he cross-checked participants' journals, a surprising pattern emerged. The strongest anomalies all occurred when participants recalled a deceased loved one. Not everyone experienced it. Not every emotion was strong enough. But when the grief was pure, when the call from the heart was quiet enough, the devices responded. Dean called the phenomenon the resonance field of memory. It required no words, no vivid visualization, only a love that had never closed, a bond not yet broken, and a soul still reaching for someone beyond the boundary of life and death. He wrote a report and sent it to a few trusted colleagues. The first reaction, skepticism, then silence, and slowly, quietly, a few other scientists began to replicate his results with different devices, different participants, in different parts of the world. The results? Some measured it, some didn't. And Dean accepted that he wasn't trying to prove the soul exists. He just wanted to ask a question worth considering. If something does remain after the body disappears, can science be humble enough to listen? Dean Radin didn't wear a lab coat when stepping on stage at the conference. He chose a simple gray sweater, No ghostly images, just charts of data variance, numbers shifting subtly, like whispers. He opened his talk with one sentence. I'm not here to prove the soul exists. I'm just here to share what my device recorded. When the human heart opened, the hall went silent. Some leaned back in skepticism. Some frowned. But there were also eyes beginning to glisten. Because Dean didn't just speak in terms, he told the story of Emily, of room 3, of the faint click the machine made, exactly when she called out to her father. No sensational tale, no ghosts, no apparitions, just one tiny dot in a sea of numbers. But that dot blurred the line between science and soul. Someone asked, if souls can truly respond, why don't they appear more clearly? Why are they so silent? Dean answered with a soft smile. Maybe the other side doesn't want to disrupt this world. Maybe true souls only speak to those quiet enough to hear. After that day, Dean received hundreds of letters, not from research institutions, but from ordinary people, those who had lost a father, a mother, a lover, a child. They weren't seeking proof. They only needed hope that what they felt on the loneliest nights was not illusion, but a real presence, invisible, yet still beside them. Dean had no final conclusion. He simply wrote one line in his research journal. Perhaps, in the end, science is not the one denying the soul. It just never learned how to listen properly. 1 month after the experiment, Emily returned to the Noetic Institute. No announcement, no request to meet anyone. She simply stood in front of room 3. In her hands were a bouquet of white flowers and a handwritten letter. The room was still the same, still empty, still silent. The Arigi device had been put away. No more signals, no more machines. She stepped inside, gently placed the bouquet on the wooden chair, the very spot where the first signal had appeared that day. She opened the letter and read a short passage aloud, as if speaking only to herself. I saw the signal. I know. It wasn't the machine that moved. I don't need science to prove anything anymore, because my heart already believes. There was no strange light, no voice from the void, only a gentle breeze drifting through a small window. She turned and slowly walked down the hallway. Behind her, room 3 remained slightly ajar, as if it were waiting for someone else. Another story, another longing. You've just traveled a journey where a scientist chose to listen to what the world ignored. You've heard of experiments once thought impossible, of how numbers began to tell stories, and of a father who found a way to send a message across the veil between life and death. From now on, perhaps you'll never look at dreams the same. Never dismiss the chill on your neck as mere coincidence. Never assume that silence means emptiness, because sometimes the clearest presence lives in what cannot be seen. If this story touched a memory or someone you've lost, comment the letter Q. If you'd like me to share more experiments, more stories where science and the soul meet. Comment continue? And if one day you step into an empty room, don't be too quick to assume you're alone. In the next video, I'll tell the most heartbreaking story yet, about a scientist who recorded a farewell to the soul of his own daughter. Stay tuned.